Once upon a time, Kickstarter was looked at as a magical tool that makes wishes come true. For instance, the wish for new Mega Man and Castlevania games during a period of time where, long story short, Konami and Capcom started being wieners, which led to Keiji Inafune and Koji Igarashi, the Mega Man and Castlevania guys, to leave their respective companies. And thanks to the power of Kickstarter, they managed to break records and raise $4 and $5.5 million to create spiritual successors for both Mega Man and Castlevania with Mighty No. 9 and Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. However, once Mighty No. 9 finally came out after like 300 delays, it ended up being more disappointing than my grandma's yummy junk, causing many people, including myself, to be a lot more hesitant about fan-funded projects. And due to this paranoia, everybody thought that Bloodstained would turn into Shitstain. But now that Bloodstained's NES-styled 2D platformer stretch goal Curse of the Moon's out, we can finally answer the most important question in the history of mankind. Does it fare better than the other Kickstarter wish that was granted Mighty No. 9? Or does it shit the bed even worse and spell doom for Ritual of the Night's future? My name's Cameron, and, obviously Bloodstained's better, come on. I can't even pretend it's close for the sake of suspense. So instead, let me tell you what Bloodstained did right versus what Mighty No. 9 did wrong. I think it goes without saying that if you like 2D Castlevania games, then you absolutely positively have to get Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Otherwise, you're gonna get arrested and go to a federal pound-me-in-the-ass prison, because this game absolutely nails the field of Castlevania. Even if you've never played a Castlevania game before, you really should check this out if you enjoy 2D platformers at all. Aside from graphical capabilities, this is pretty much what a new Castlevania game on the NES would have been like. And despite this game being an appetizer for what's to come, it easily has enough merit as a standalone game to justify $10. It gives fans exactly what they would have wanted out of a new 2D Castlevania platformer, which is astonishingly the exact opposite of what Mighty No. 9 did for Mega Man fans. But I realized that game was doomed from the start a year before it came out by playing it at a convention for literally less than a minute, which was devastating, seeing as how I would have bet my own actual ass that this would have been just as good, if not better, than a new Mega Man game. Mighty No. 9 didn't even feel like a Mega Man game at all. There was 2D platforming and shooting, but instead of just leaving it to running and gunning, you're supposed to run, gun, and for some fucking reason dash into enemies after shooting them enough times, which defeats the whole purpose of attacking at a distance. I mean, you can just shoot enemies and they'll die, but the game will make you feel like a loser if you don't dash into them. Imagine if Bloodstained or Castlevania made you attack enemies with a whip or sword, and instead of the enemies dying and you moving on, you're supposed to walk to the far left side of the screen to throw a Polish sausage at them. Dashing in Mighty No. 9 overcomplicates things like hell and sucks the fun out faster than an inappropriate oral sex joke being placed in the middle of a video game related video. I did have a shred of optimism when Mighty No. 9 was delayed approximately 301 times, because usually delays mean that quality's important to the developers. But deep up in my ass, I knew the delays weren't going to get rid of the dashing and that the game was doomed even if they did make this new edition feel more natural. Thankfully though, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon doesn't force any new and unnecessary gameplay mechanics. While there are simple and modernized improvements such as frequent checkpoints and saves, it's exactly what you'd want out of a retro Castlevania platformer. I'm not against games improving old concepts since the gaming industry wouldn't be where it is today otherwise, but Curse of the Moon knows damn well it's trying to tickle our nostalgia holes and doesn't shy away from it. In recent years, I've grown to resent 8-bit graphics more and more because we're at a point where developers are just lazy now. It was cool when Shovel Knight did it because no one was really doing it at the time, and even though Celeste is one of my favorite indie games ever, I do think it would have been a lot cooler if the graphics were more original, like something such as Shoe. So one thing I will give Mighty No. 9 is that it went for an original look. The frame rate was fucked, but at least it made a genuine effort to have its own graphical style. Luckily, just like other resurrected franchises, Curse of the Moon gets a pass for the 8-bit graphics, cause obviously it would have been called Castlevania if it were legally allowed to be. And besides, we know Ritual of the Night's gonna have a modernized style, so it's not like Curse of the Moon's being lazy or anything like that. Besides, even before Mighty No. 9 came out, Beck was a playable character on the much superior game Mighty Gunvolt, which was an 8-bit run-and-gun that, oddly enough, had you kill enemies simply by shooting them without dashing into them. That game was a lot closer to being a Mega Man game than what Mighty No. 9 ended up becoming. Unfortunately though, that game was way too short with only 5 stages, whereas unlike my Peony, Mighty No. 9 has a respectable length to it at least. But even though you'll be playing it for a reasonable amount of time, it doesn't mean shit if the game's not actually fun. And while it only takes roughly 90 minutes to complete Curse of the Moon on your first playthrough, there's plenty of alternate paths you can take with multiple endings to keep you busy for far longer. Plus it's only $10 instead of Mighty No. 9's original price at $30. Although Mighty No. 9 did have a physical release. Hopefully Curse of the Moon gets one someday too through limited run or something like that so it can kick Mighty No. 9's ass that much harder. A lot of people say one of the only redeeming qualities to Mighty No. 9 was the music, but to tell you the truth, I didn't even notice it. Mainly because the in-game music was barely audible. But even when I actually listened listened to it later on, I kinda just thought it was whatever. It was especially disappointing to me since it was composed by old Mega Man musicians Ippo Yamada and Cisco. And then you take a look at the music in Bloodstained, and holy poop. Every single song in the game's catchy and gets me rock hard to kill some evil assholes. And like I said at the beginning of the video, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon's the clear-cut winner and superior game. But if there was one thing you'd think Mighty No. 9 would excel at, it'd be the weapon selection. Because after all, it's supposed to be a spiritual successor to Mega Man. One of the coolest things about Mega Man's the various weapons to choose from. However, Keiji Inafune's smelly ass couldn't even get that right. With the exception of the electrical weapon that I'm not going to put effort into looking up the name since there wasn't much effort put into Mighty No. 9, every weapon's boring as hell, with two of them just being rehashes of old Mega Man power-ups that suck to begin with. In Bloodstained, you can play as and switch between 4 different characters, much like Castlevania 3. There's the main character Zengetsu with solid controls and a standard sword. Then there's Miriam, who's my favorite, that jumps higher and slides, who also uses a whip to attack slower but cover more distance. Alfred's a senior citizen alchemist who clubs people with a rod. He also uses powerful magic, and his burning sphere in particular is useful for getting through some difficult areas. And lastly, there's Stevie, whose attacks can reach enemies in hard-to-reach places. And he also turns into a bat that serves as a get-out-of-platforming free card. Instead of all the characters sharing one health bar like in Castlevania 3, though, the game steals a page from Little Samson by giving everybody their own, and you don't officially lose a life till all 4 of your characters die. But thanks to there being frequent checkpoints, it's worth trying to get as far as you can if the better characters die, so you can start off a little closer to the end of the stage when you fully kick the bucket. Even on veteran mode, this game's a little bit on the easy side, but after you complete the game the first time, you can crank the difficulty up a little bit. And to tell you the truth, I haven't played Castlevania 3 in a dog's age, so I can't really compare the two. But there is still challenge to be had in Bloodstained, and it's all fair and relies zero on frustrating traps like Mighty No. 9's blind jumps into spikes, or making you restart entire stages from the beginning if you die. I can't stress enough that Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is something that any lover of retro games should buy, whether you played Castlevania or not. Because I'm not even a diehard Castlevania fan myself, but I will replay this game many times over. My only one complaint about the game, though, is that the bosses could have been an ass hair cooler. The common enemies are all neat and spooky, but compared to the public domain movie monsters like Frankenstein and Dracula, Bloodstained just doesn't stack up quite as well in my opinion. Especially with the very first boss in the game being a fucking train. I know it's a ghost train, and some people might get mad at me in the comments for shitting on this, but I don't know whether or not I'm fighting a robot or a monster.
It's either a robot or a monster.
Other than that, and the fact that there aren't any physical copies yet, though, Curse of the Moon's perfect for what it is. And the craziest part is that the good old folks at Inti Crates, who are also somehow responsible for Mighty No. 9, made this game without even trying, or at least that's what I'm gonna say since it's just an appetizer for what's in store to come later this year, and not even the game we kickstarted in the first place. It was just a bonus little stretch goal, but the biggest takeaway in the comparison between Mighty No. 9 and Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is that with crowdfunded games, there are no guarantees. So if you decide to support one in the future, just realize that it's an educated gamble, so don't be too disappointed if it doesn't pay off. And another lesson I got out of this is that gaming is better now than it ever has been before. I mean, think about it. The big dick AAA releases obviously have a lot of advantages over games of the past, but if games of the past are your thing, there's still plenty of them being made, and if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that a lot of them are better than they used to be. And even though shitty games still exist, they're not even close to being as bad as the shittiest retro games. But if you played Bloodstained, what do you think about it? Does anybody actually like Mighty No. 9? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, I'll pin whatever I find most entertaining. Subscribe if you enjoyed my incoherent rambling. Don't forget to share this video to help this channel grow. And if you want to go the extra mile and support us on Patreon, then you'll officially become a legendary badass robot and/or monster. My name's Cameron, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty. Thank you for your support.